Good evening and welcome to tonight's people competition for the Cleveland Photographic Society. Before we get started, there are a few announcements. I just want to go through them. Our next competition is January 22nd. It's a nature and pictorial competition, and the deadline for entries is January 13th. We do have a couple of upcoming speakers this month. Next week, January 15th, we have a members-only Zoom session with Louis Kemper. This is his second session with us. This one is on time and motion techniques. Again, it's members only for the Zoom session, and there will be a link sent out later this week with the Zoom information. And then at the end of the month, we have another members-only Zoom session on January 29th with Irene Hinkie-Sacalato, and hers is a passion for wildlife photography. So you can check the calendar for some information, more information on those. We also want to point out that we have begun our winter classes. They are virtual, all virtual this particular session. Hopefully sometime in the near future we will be able to get back to live classes, but they are virtual. So on Wednesday nights, and we started last week, we've got fundamentals of photography. On Saturdays, starting on January 9th, this coming Saturday, we start Photoshop editing. And then on Mondays, starting January 18th, we have intermediate Photoshop. So just so you're aware that those are going on. So again, we invite you to watch this and all Friday evening meetings at your convenience on the CPS YouTube channel. There's a link on the CPS website homepage to open up YouTube. Or you can open YouTube and search for Cleve Photographic, and we invite you to subscribe to our channel and choose to be notified whenever a new video is posted. I do want to point out, though, that the Zoom sessions, because we are bringing in outside speakers, they have asked that these things be available to members only, so you will not find those Zoom presentations out on YouTube. We do plan to offer them a second time as kind of an encore presentation, but again, it will be for members only. So again, we'd like to welcome you. This is our third people competition for the 2020-2021 year. We have a total of 113 images tonight, 48 in the people category and 65 pictorial images. So we'd like to kind of introduce you to our judges. These judges are judged remotely, and their comments will be read by some of our members. The first one is Joe Applebaum. He's a retired photography and art teacher. He spent most of his career in the Brecksville Broadview Heights High School. During 1 year, he realized he had examined about 50,000 images on proof sheets, so he's had a lot of experience looking at images. Has spent a career trying to help students understand what makes a photograph good. He's had several students who are now working in the field, including some who have had their journalism images presented in the New York Times. One student was recognized for her video work on The Deadliest Catch. He has been a photographer for 40 years, participating in many shows and contests, has shot weddings, parties, and portraits for years. Our next judge, John Rivera-Resto. He's a multidisciplinary artist who began his career in 1972. At that time, he was acting, writing, designing for, and directing religious and traditional Spanish plays. Painting large-scale murals became his primary focus starting in 1974. His mural, It's Up to Us, the People, has been named a Cleveland landmark. In addition to his extensive art career, John has been a speaker for and conducted many art workshops in area schools and colleges, as well as abroad. The past few years, he has enjoyed serving as a competitions judge and guest lecturer here at the Cleveland Photographic Society. Our final judge is Mike Ormiston. He has been doing photography and darkroom work since he was 11 years old. He received a BFA from Kent State University and signed on with American Greetings in 1977, where he was involved in darkroom and studio work. He soon joined the creative photo studio staff, where he continued working until 2017. And this involved commercial shooting of people, setting up at travel locations, and using studio work for cards and calendars. His recent personal work tends more towards illustration, using photos as a basic element. He was also an adjunct instructor at Cuyahoga Community College from 1978 to 2016, originally teaching basic and advanced color courses, as well as black and white and studio and digital imaging. So those are our three judges. Now, the judges' comments will be read by members. The comments from Mike will be read by Dan Sandy. The comments from Joe will be read by Bill Keaton, and the comments from John will be read by Michael Smith. For those maybe not familiar with our judging criteria, each judge will score an image on a scale of 5 to 9. And the final score for each image is the total of all three judges' scores. Images are judged on 3 criteria: impact, composition, and technique. And so they get basically a 1 to 3 on any of those, and the total then would give the individual judges' scores. All right, so tonight we're going to begin with the people images. Bill will be reading comments on all of the images?
Yes.
Okay, we will be reading images, comments really on all of the images, so all of the people images. All right. Okay, so let's get started here.
Mike says, "This is a sweet shot that will make the parents of this baby happy, I'm sure. There is just a bit of motion blur or camera shake going on. That may well be the trade-off for getting such a good close crop, which engages you with the eyes."
Okay, the title of the image is Rowan. It's by Mike Lonsdale, 22 points.
This is a nicely caught moment, Joe says. The composition is strong, nice angled lines and good balance. The harsh light is a bit much. I would suggest bringing the highlights down just a bit.
The image is entitled A Little Music by Rick Carroll, 23 points, honorable mention.
John states, "This image does a very effective job of integrating a special effect into a photograph. The orange color light form seems to controlled by the figure's movements, which is silhouetted within the glows that engulfed it. This effect gives movement to the image and brings the eye focus to the center of the form. But what makes the image effective is that the orange form seems fully integrated into the environment as it casts soft light into the background and a stronger glow onto the grass. The photograph could benefit from a slight increase in contrast to intensity, the light source, and to darken background areas, resulting in a greater depth. And since the orange form is such a strong element controlling the composition, a slight cropping on the right side of the image would bring its shape into better balance within the perspective frame."
The image is entitled Abbey Light 1 by Ronald Wilson, 23 points, honorable mention.
Mike says, "A very direct look into this person's eyes shows an intensity of personality. This makes it a powerful photo. Perhaps crop a little tighter and for even more impact."
The image is entitled Abbey 2 by Rick Carroll, 23 points, honorable mention.
Joe says this image has a lot of good things happening in it. Composition is good and the fog helps, but without the fog, it would be just an image of some kayakers. A bit more space between the two would help, not a lot of emotion or tension in the image.
The image is entitled Amish Date by Bob Kowaleski, 23 points, honorable mention.
John says, the figure of the model is the focal point of this image. The driftwood at the foreground provides textural contrasting with the smoothness of her skin, while the plain background further defines her forms. The tonal range is tight, keeping color saturation to a minimal, giving the model a youthful, subtle glow, devoid of any harshness. But the composition would benefit of cropping on the right, cutting closer to the arm, and a slight extension at the top to add more negative space above the head. These changes would make the model's face the central focus of the image and improve the visual balance of the composition.
The image is entitled Angela at Angela Beach by Eric Weddington, 21 points.
I love the smile on this guy's face, Mike says. It's the center of attention. I would suggest quite a bit tighter crop to remove some of the unnecessary open space, but which would still show all of the important stuff.
The image is entitled Aruba Smile by Mike Kopkas, 20 points.
Joe says a decent job of composition, eyes on the upper third. The whites behind him are too blown out. Seems too much like a snapshot, not enough to make it a portrait, not enough interest to be a street capture.
The image is called At the Fish Market by Jim Rowe, 17 points.
John says, to add more drama and depth to this photograph, the entire image should be rotated clockwise until the white car top at the center of the right edge becomes horizontally leveled. The subtle rotation will make the figure of the man holding the tie for the balloon tilt slightly to the right, making the action of holding the line more dynamic. Then, exposure and contrast should be intensified, thus resulting in deeper darks and sharper highlights to give the entire scene more depth.
The image is entitled Balloon Launch by Gary Marich, 18 points.
According to Mike, this is an emotional shot of a colorful character. There is a very good use of limited depth of field to separate him from what seems to be a busy background. It's good to see the out-of-focus colors in the back, which support the character's colors, but don't overly compete.
The image is entitled Because I'm Happy, by Bill Barris, 24 points, third place.
Interesting dress subject, Joe says, which tells us something about the subject. That's what you want when you photograph people. But there is such an obvious framing possibility behind her that it detracts from the person, either moving to the photographer's right to take the photo, or if she was modeling, then definitely move her to the left.
The image is entitled Burano Fashion Statement by Dennis Wirt, 20 points.
Juan says, having an attractive subject is half the battle, but bringing it to the center of attention is the winning part. This image is well focused and posed, but the cropping makes the composition off balance and takes away from the subject. So to make the smiling beauty the center of attention, crop the left side up to the single white strip on her forearm and at the bottom until the lettering of the ball is cut off. The resulting close-up will make her a 10. She will have no complaints.
The image is entitled Cheerleader by Kathy Amari, 23 points, honorable mention.
This photo has a classic pose and look, says Mike. The technique really helps, and the composition is really very well done. The railing provides just enough environment and cuts through the picture in a good place.
The image is entitled Contemplation by Ronald Posner, 24 points, third place.
The image's main subject becomes a napkin and the fork, Joe says. We don't really see enough of the person to be about him or her. It is a good job of seeing, but not a strong enough image. If it was about reflections, it would be stronger, but the main subject in the reflection isn't interesting enough. Good depth of field on a whole image and having the background out of focus does help.
The image is entitled Cool Shades by Fran Zanheiser, 20 points.
Juan says, this is one of those casual photographs when one just happens to say, hey, babe, and a picture is taken. As such, the point is to capture the subject. This may be good for a snapshot, but a photographer must consider the background surrounding the subject and the direction of the sun. Since the photograph, the subject stands with the sun behind her, the background is bright, but the figure's features look flat in the low tonal range. A good solution would be move between the sun and the subject and then say, babe, look this way now.
The image is entitled Field Trip by Gary Marich, 18 points.
The color is very festive in this picture. The color palette is also nicely integrated. We can view the woman and child from a distance, yet know there is a connection, according to Mike.
The image is entitled First Festival by Gary Wood, 21 points.
Joe says a very strong image, well composed, good use of balance with the dark background, then gray in the lighter bottom. Exceptional focus. Usually I would prefer the person to look us in the eye, but this one works as if to say he is seeing the future or his past. The dodging on the eyes and the left side of the neck is a little too much, but overall a great photo.
The image is called Great Trail Trapper by Dave Saborik, 26 points, first place.
This is a great shot. Two things to make it even greater. Crop in on the right side to a little less than the halfway point between the right edge of the dancer's shoulder to improve the composition. I am reading the wrong one. You're right.
Okay, let's try that again.
Un momento. Yours? Got it. All right. Sorry about that, folks. Okay. Juan Dice. This is a photograph I have never seen before, where the tattooed image becomes the center of attention and the subject of the image. The contrast between the expression of the young woman against the tattooed woman painted on her arm is both interesting and beautiful to look at as artwork. The vignette effect does an excellent job of focusing the light toward the center of the image. But to balance the composition to perfection, crop just a little on the left up to the beginning of the lashes on her lower eye, then crop at the bottom up to where the hair disappears into the hand of the painted lady.
The image is entitled Inked by Bill Keaton, 24 points, third place.
Mike says this is a well-done portrait, such as a graduation style. The softening technique is very appropriate. The hair on top of the head is somewhat lost in the background, but the splayed hair on the white top is an interesting design element.
The image is entitled Isabel by Sarah Zeitlow, 24 points, third place.
A well-composed image, Joe says. The kids have an interesting attitude to them instead of just a smiling photo. Dropped a bit too much on both the left and the right side. The girl in front having the lightest outfit, it makes her stand out too much, and the one in the back is a bit dark. Very nice depth of field and lighting.
The image is entitled Kids, August 13th, 2007 at Uchi Creek by Audrey Roble, 22 points.
Juan comments, this is an interesting subject, and I believe that placement of the camera below eye level presented the subject in an impressive and dignified pose. This keeps the busy background from interfering with the main focus of the image, which is the man's face. The picture appeared to have been taken during an overcast day, thus keeping the tonal range soft, but the softness of the colors held them back from distracting the eye from the subject. I would only make one change to improve the composition, and this would be to crop at the bottom about 2 fingers length and then add the same distance at the top to provide more space above the head.
The image is entitled Manhattan Street Performer by Richard Ader, 22 points.
This picture shows the subject's personality, says Mike. Lighting is lighting is contrasty, but that is appropriate for the masculine portraiture. I would like to see something. Oh my goodness! I'm sorry, folks. I would like to see something which adds a bit to this picture. Some of the variations in the background lighting.
Okay, the image is entitled My Sweet Nephew Tony by Fran Marino, 21 points.
Joe says, an interesting photo of a baby, well composed, and a nice balance of form and shapes. Light is just a bit too bright and needs a little bounce into the shadow side of the face. Focus is a bit too soft.
The image is entitled Newborn's Gaze by Vicky Wirt, 25 points, second place.
Juan comments, this is a great shot. 2 things to make it even greater. Crop on the right side to a little less than the halfway point between the right edge and the dancer's shoulder to improve the composition. And secondly, wet the floor so that in reflecting the backdrop, it blends into the color scheme. Works for Ridley Scott.
The image is entitled Reaching for the Light by Jackie Sieski, 24 points, third place.
This is well done because of its simplicity. Soft lighting for the feminine subject is usually a good idea for this type of grad glam. I have to believe the subject was very happy with the results of this. Photographer used limited depth of field to advantage. The composition, notably division of space in this photo, is very attractive.
The image is entitled Sophia by Susan Bestel, 24 points, third place.
This has decent composition, Joe says, but looks too much like a snapshot, not a photograph trying to tell us something interesting about the people. Even waiting until the child was looking at us would help. Flash does tend to flatten everything.
The image is entitled The Cowboy and the Unicorn by Mike Kopkas, 20 points.
According to Juan, this is one heck of a face, beautifully captured in black and white. It is so interesting that I would be tempted to crop tighter. The focus is excellent, and the lighting kept soft without losing midtones or letting highlights and darks go out of control. And, while the close-up crop works well, moving back to achieve a portrait crop would probably work great too. One thing that makes the subject look so engaging is his subtle smile.
The image is entitled The Lines Tell a Story by Bill Keaton, 23 points, honorable mention.
Mike says this is a powerful photo for 2020. The strong lighting works to convey the seriousness and determination of the character, and the technique seems appropriate. If this were a poster, and it could be, text would fill in some of the empty space. As a standalone photo, I would crop off some of that excess background. I also wish I could see just a hint of an arm through the art technique, as the character seems to float a bit.
The image is entitled The Mechanic by Jackie Sieski, 24 points, third place.
A very well composed image, Joe says. Good use of balance along with the framing. She has a really interesting look on her face. Great focus on the wood. Would like to see a little wider depth of field so her face was a bit more in focus.
The image is entitled Through the Window by Marge Brady, 22 points.
John says, this is an engaging portrait because the model has connected with the viewer with her engaging smile. The one thing I would be tempted to experiment with would be to crop on the left side to match the cropping of the hat on the right side. Then, cropping a hair at the bottom would place the engaging smile smack in the center of the image where it belongs.
The image is entitled Tibetan Young Woman by Ronald Posner, 22 points.
Mike says this looks like a zipline, but is still somewhat of an enigma to me, as I don't fully know what is happening. However, the photo has a lot of visual interest, and that becomes the main thing for me.
The image is entitled Vegas Zipline Rescue by Cynthia Smith, 22 points.
Joe says, uses the rule of thirds very well. Arm brings the eye back to the face, but it weakens the lower right bottom of the photo. Sunglasses are an annoying prop that doesn't add to the person or the photo in any way.
The image is entitled Young Executive by Robert Boyle, 22 points.
John states, for the most part, the boy in the photo appears static, as if waiting to rope a steer. His gaze is distant and his pose relaxed, seeming completely unaware of the camera. But the metal bars of the gate coming at an incline angle give the composition movement and direction, guiding the way out of the frame to where the boy is looking. So what appears to be a simple shot was always intended to be the very well constructed photo that it is.
The image is entitled The Dream by Mike Lonsdale, 22 points.
Mike says, here's a classic Americana photo. The sepia toning fits the idea. I am seeing a little camera shake or blurring of the riders. A shorter shutter is recommended unless you want the blurring.
The image is entitled Amish Bikers, Black and White by Ronald Wilson, 23 points, honorable mention.
A really nice image, Joe says. The lack of emotion in the image really shows a lot of emotion. Glad he is confronting us. We have to look into his eyes. The bit of tilt to his head works nicely, and the lighting is very good.
The image is entitled Beard Man by Maria Diaconou, 22 points.
Juan states that the gorgeous image has the beauty of a vintage glass shot of the era. The image grain, like the surface of a frosted glass, gives it a tinted quality that is very appealing and pleasant to the eye. The vignette effect further emphasizes the glass shot comparison because, as in a glass plate, the light gain is stronger at the center. The one thing I would do to further improve the composition is to raise the vignette effect at the bottom up to the hands holding the rifle to further lift the center of attention. The pose with the rifle being held at an upward angle to the right and the downward angle from the hat down the right shoulder to the rifle barrel form an angle pointing like the tip of an arrow in the same direction of his gaze.
The image is entitled Ever Alert by Robert Boyle, 24 points, third place.
Mike says, the meaning of this picture is not clear. The one child's face tells you something, but I wonder what the three boys are looking at so intensely. That could be a missed part of the story.
The image is entitled Family Outing by Marge Brady, 20 points.
Joe says the position of the woman is good. The color really throws the balance off. The reds are too strong. It might be a better photo if it were in black and white.
The image is entitled Grandmother by Gary Wood, 22 points.
Juan says, this is an extreme close-up where the illumination is almost frontal. This in-your-face quality makes me wish to take a step back as to add some negative space around his head. The black and white treatment gives the subject a gritty look that some may find engaging, but others might find a little creepy. This is why this lighting style is so loved by some directors of scary movies for their close-ups. One can argue about its psychological pros and cons, but you can't deny it is effective.
The image is entitled Hessler Street Artist by Dave Saborik, 23 points, honorable mention.
Mike says, here's an iconic phrase from 2020. What can this picture have to add to that basic message? What the sign says might be helpful.
The image is entitled I Can't Breathe by Kim Wasilewski, 23 points, honorable mention.
Joe says a well-composed, great capture of the moment and use of light, but I hate the selective color. She looks like she was dropped in. If she was in red, she would have stood out against the green and basic colors of the floor. It distracts from the lines and patterns that you take around the area so well.
The image is entitled Lady in Red by Glenn Petranek, 22 points.
Juan says, this is a very interesting portrait. Good subject, interesting pose, a limited palette of 2 colors, a cool glow, and a warm facial tone. One hell of a pipe. An illumination style that looks theatrical. The vignette effect actually makes the background light seem like it's being color washed by a spotlight. The final effect is that of a colorized photograph of a character playing on the stage.
The image is entitled Meerschaum Pipe by Cynthia Smith, 25 points, second place.
Mike says, the photographer has done a good job of freezing the subject's motion while still getting some of the blurring in the surroundings. The simple, out-of-focus background is advantageous to keeping the image simple and effective.
The image is entitled Mongolian Horse Race by Richard Ader, 25 points, second place.
The depth of field works well in this, Joe says, but I want the model to look at us. I'm also bothered by the strange sort of glow around her that breaks off the background. The highlights could be brought down some.
The image is entitled My Favorite Model by Fran Zanheiser, 22 points.
Juan comments, this is a lovely posed portrait that makes good use of an architectural element, the stairway, to create an interesting composition. The below eye level shot works very well in this composition and adds more visual depth to the stairs perspective. Thought, one thing that distracts the eyes is the changing color of the girl's hand. Another is the fact that the colors of the tiles seem more saturated than the rest of the image and its subject. This is a minor gripe, but one I feel takes a little away from the girl's lovely face and expression.
The image is entitled Phoebe by Susan Bestel, 24 points, third place.
Mike says, this is an attractive, nicely lit portrait of a pretty young woman. Her expression is understated and a bit mysterious. The color scheme of this photo is complicated in range, though the blue flowers she holds go nicely with the blue background.
The image is entitled Princess Stephanie by Fran Marino, 22 points.
Joe says a fun photo. The kids are very expressive, good composition, though the highlights are a bit too much.
The image is entitled The Ultimate Surprise by Serena Cernick, 22 points.
One states, the harsh lights coming from the background add menace to the scene. The focal point is the creature which seems to have just noticed the viewer and is about to have a scary encounter. No idea where this picture was taken, but the photographer took advantage of the lighting and the subject to capture this unique image as it happened. Perhaps this is the one word that best describes this image is spontaneity.
The image is entitled Winter Monster 2020 by Jim Rowe, 19 points. And that concludes the people portion. Now we'll move on to pictorial. And we're only going to comment on certain images. So I will run through the no comment images, give you a chance to look at it, read the title of the image and the maker's name and the score. And then when we get to the comment images, we'll pick up from there. Okay, so the first image, A Bird in the Hand by Wayne Fierstein, 22 points. The next image, What Cake by Mike Lonsdale, 22 points. The next image is entitled A Spider on Web by Dan Hennessy, 23 points. This image is entitled Affelder Falls by Ron Werman, 20 points. This image is entitled Air Show by Eric Weddington, 21 points. This image is entitled Antelope Canyon Abstract by Dennis Wirt, 25 points, third place. This one is called At the Farm by Jim Rowe, 22 points. This image is entitled Bald Cypress Trees by Joseph Miko, 21 points. This image is entitled Barrel Racer Number 1 by Ronald Wilson, 26 points, second place. This image is entitled Bean Before and After by Audrey Roble, 18 points. This image is entitled Shelf Cloud Over Lakeside Yacht Club by Bill Barris, 24 points, honorable mention. This image is called Calm Coolness by Bob Kowaleski, 23 points. This image is called Dolly Museum Building by Maria Diaconou, 22 points. This image is called Fire and Ice by Sarah Zeitlow, 22 points. This image is entitled I'm Your Ice Cream Man by Glenn Petranik, 27 points, first place. 27 is a perfect score, and if we were live, we would stand up and applaud and present Glenn with a ribbon kind of honoring his accomplishment. So congratulations, Glenn. All right, the next image is entitled Innocence by Serena Cernick, 23 points. The next image is entitled Kindness Surrounds Us by Celeste Wagner, 22 points. The next image is entitled Little Bit of Magic by Serena Cernick, 20 points. The next image is called Lots of Bats by Dan Hennessy, 20 points. This image is entitled Memories by Bonnie Luxo, 24 points, honorable mention. This image is called Milky Way by Linda Nellis, 23 points. This image is entitled Milky Way at Taquaminon Marsh by Donna Schneider, 23 points. This image is entitled Morning Mist on Lake Michigan by Fran Zanheiser, 20 points. This image is called Mozart Memories by Vicki Wirt, 24 points, honorable mention. This image is called Nature Realm Forever by Dave Saborik, 23 points. This image is called Nature's Masterpiece is Family by Susan Bestel, 24 points, honorable mention. This image is called Now Where Is He by Cynthia Smith, 23 points. This image is entitled Old and Glory by Celeste Wagner, 21 points. This image is called Peregrine Falcon by Joseph Miko, 25 points, third place. This image is called Pyramid of Khafre by Richard Ader, 21 points. This image is called Reflection 2 by Robert Boyle, 22 points. This image is called Resting Tools by Bonnie Luxo, 24 points, honorable mention. This image is called Rolling Hills of West Virginia by Donna Schneider, 22 points. This image is called Route 82 from the Tracks by Rick Mills, 19 points. This image is called Sparky by Kim Vasilevsky, 23 points. This image is called Station Road Tracks by Rick Mills, 19 points. This image is entitled Summer Swan Song by Gary Wood, 24 points, honorable mention. This image is called Tabernacle Altar Aisle by Ron Werman, 24 points, honorable mention. This image is called Time with Alice in Wonderland by Fran Marino, 24 points, honorable mention. This image is called West 95th Street Tunnel by Glenn Petranek, 25 points, third place. This image is called Weathered Barn by Marge Brady, 21 points. This image is called What Bird by Kim Vasilevsky, 24 points, honorable mention. This image is called White Bird by Maria Diaconou, 25 points, third place. This image is called Winter Life by Wayne Fierstein, 22 points. This image is called Christmas at Public Square by Linda Nellis, 21 points. All right, we'll begin comments on these images.
Mike says, a picture postcard image of an iconic subject. Nicely done. The composition interestingly divides the photo diagonally, giving equal space to the foreground and background. That might not always be a good idea, but it works here.
The image is called Bass Harbor Head Light, 23 points. Gotta move it, sorry.
Joe says this is a beautiful image. Great balance and light. Maybe would like a bit deeper depth of field.
This image is called Christmas Cactus by Joseph Miko, 25 points, third place.
John says, this image captures the colors and elicits the smell of wax that used to excite us as children. The one thing I would have done to spice up the composition would have been to crop the image on both sides, so the entire space would be filled with crayons and not show the side of the cardboard boxes. In doing so, the rows of crayons would seem to extend out of the frame into infinity.
The image is entitled Crayola Virus by Mike Kopkas, 22 points.
Mike says, photographing a water droplet is not an easy thing, as I can attest from direct experience. If this is a straight photo, it is excellent. If it is a Photoshop project, the creator has done a great job. So either way, it's highly successful, and the color really helps.
The image is entitled Droplets After a Splash by Ron Werman, 25 points, third place.
Joe says, I find the rock very interesting. The texture on it and the leaves are great. You might want to crop it a little tighter.
The image is called Everett River Rocks by Rick Mills, 22 points.
Juan states, this is a lovely and serene scene that actually portrays the cool mist of a sunrise. The water is like glass, which means there is hardly any wind, making the mist just flow above it. To make this picture perfect, I would crop on the left side of the image a little past the tall tree. Then I would increase the color saturation just a bit to bring in the sunlight.
The image is called Foggy Morning at Reflection Lake by Donna Schneider, 23 points.
Mike says, whether this is an, oh my goodness, I'm going to start this one all over again. Whether this is a flower encased in ice or a flower behind a screen, it's a beautiful image. And and would look wonderful as a big enlargement. The texture helps to reduce the subject matter to basic shape and color.
The image is entitled Frozen in Color by Vicky Wirt, 25 points, third place.
Joe says, a good landscape image. Nice depth of field, and the tree does stand out nicely as a focal point. Maybe take a few steps back to give the tree a little bit more space.
The image is entitled Glorious Morning by Rick Carroll, 24 points, honorable mention.
Juan says, there is a lot of primal action and movement in this image. You can almost feel the whistle of the wind and the roaring of the waves. The bright colors, warm in the sky, provide a contrast to the cool tones of the water. Somehow, I would like these two visual elements to blend. This could be accomplished by allowing some of the yellow-orange tones to dance on the water, probably close to the horizon. Then I would sit back and take it all in.
The image is called High Waves at the Beach by Linda Nellis, 20 points.
Mike says, getting a flying bird's head in almost complete focus while having other parts be blurred is tricky, and the photographer was not entirely successful here. Here's where persistence in shooting is needed. You could also try some post-production blur reduction sharpening as a last resort.
The image is called Hovering Gull by Mick Russo, 20 points.
Joe says this is a good choice to take, correction, this is a good choice to put the lighthouse in between the fences. The balance is okay, though the lighthouse is a bit too centered. It also has a strange sort of glow around it. I'm not sure if that is from processing, but it looks like it.
The image is entitled Marblehead Lighthouse by Bob Kowaleski, 21 points.
Juan states, this is a gorgeous image that makes good use of these unique architectural forms and the effects of reflections and bounced illumination. The shapes balance well in the composition. They are sharp and the colors are crisp. This would not work well with organic shapes, but it does remarkably well with man-made shapes like architecture. One thing I believe would add another notch to the photo would be to do a gradient effect on the sky, commencing as is on the horizon line and gently darkening in tone toward the top.
The image is entitled Rock Hall at Night by Eric Weddington, 24 points, honorable mention.
Mike says, this image is pretty postcard. Let me start that again. Good gravy. This image is a pretty postcard with a soft lighting and static balanced composition. It has a pleasant color palette with a beautiful watercolor sky. Elements are orderly and the lampposts become the hero of the shot.
The image is called San Giorgio Church by Dennis Wirt, 23 points.
A really good job of seeing, Joe says. Capturing that stained glass window with such light through the other window was a great thing. I would work on brightening the wall and add a little contrast to it.
The image is entitled Serenity by Bonnie Luxo, 22 points.
This is a magnificent image. I wouldn't change a thing, says Juan. It is striking to look at, a melange of moving elements and forces, photographed at a precise moment. The lighting and the color adjustments really sell the mood of the scene. Above all, the composition is a juxtaposition of contradictory elements that make it so exciting to look at. These are the stability and immobility of a pyramid design visually created by lines extending from the tip of the lighthouse to the extreme edge of the cut rock, and the whirlwind spiral lines created by the surf, the birds, and the waves. This is buen trabajo. Good job.
Good job, right. The image is entitled Storm Watch by Jackie Sieski, 26 points, second place.
Mike says, the view from very low makes the forest seem bigger and more dramatic in this picture. I think it needs something to be the center of interest, though. A person walking or something to attract might help.
The image is entitled Where the Trail May Lead by Celeste Wagner, 21 points.
Joe says a good capture portrait of a dog, a good use of light, but I would suggest bringing the highlights down some and lighten the top of the dog's head a little.
The image is entitled Window to the Soul by Bill Keaton, 25 points, third place.
Juan states, this is a great example of geometric abstraction. This photograph manages to show how architecture can be used to transform into an art form through the lens of a camera. Naturally, this wouldn't work if the image did not contain great compositional elements expressed in lines, planes, and tonal variations.
The image is entitled Winter Reflection by Omar Jeffries, 23 points.
Mike says, having the flower centered in this picture demands that it be the center of attention. One of the green leaves is in sharper focus than the flower itself. I suggest trying some different compositions with a shot like this, and be careful of what is in focus.
All right. The image is entitled Winter Rose Poinsettia by Gary Marich, 20 points.
Joe says, a good job of capturing a light display and its reflection. But it will mainly be interesting to those who like the architecture of the house. Otherwise, it doesn't give enough interest to engage in it.
The image is entitled Zoo Lights Reflection by Dan Hennessy, 20 points. And that concludes our competition this evening. We want to thank all of our judges and our readers who read the judges' comments. And thanks to all of you who entered. Please feel free to send us your feedback. Use info@clevelandphoto.org to make any comments if you'd like to add some comments. And we welcome you to join us on our Friday meetings and future competitions. So that concludes tonight's event. If you need more information about competing or you want to join the Cleveland Photographic Society, please visit our website, www.clevelandphoto.org. So thank you all. Have a good night. Stay safe.